Hey guys, Carell Cooper here with On the Black, and I'm joined for my weekly chat with Dave Doyle of Mets Report. Hey Dave, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we're both excited. So let's get right into it. Luis Castillo is gone finally, and it looks like Oliver Perez doesn't have much time left. I mean, I think Alderson and Collins are meeting with him on Monday, so he could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a few fans and gotten some feedback that they didn't like getting rid of Luis Castillo and having been the best second baseman of the group so far this spring. I disagree with that. I mean, I really respect what Sandy Alderson's doing, that he's figuring out if somebody's not part of the solution, that the fans don't want to see him. And, this is a business. You got to sell tickets.
Right.
If Castillo's not part of the future, which he clearly wasn't, might as well move on and find somebody who may be.
Yeah, and that I did a blog post about this yesterday, and to me, I totally agree with you. And my blog post really pretty much said, to me, it's less about Luis Castillo and more about figuring out what's the future of second base for this team. And the Mets have to find out now whether they have an in-house solution for second base or whether or not they have to go outside the organization to bring in a second baseman. So you might as well let, whether it be Emis or Turner or Murphy, you might as well let one, if not all of them, play and see, if one of them is the future for this position. And then if not, then you got to go outside and get someone else. So
I couldn't agree more.
yeah, yeah. All right, so let's try something a little bit different. I know we both have some comments on our Facebook fan pages, so let's start here. First question from Paul, and he wants to know if there's anyone on our roster that can be the 2011 version of R.A. Dickey. I guess the guy that kind of comes from out of nowhere and does really well for this team. I mean, do you see anyone potentially within the Mets organization that can do that in 2011?
I don't, but you know what? Last year I didn't see it coming with Dickey either. So, I mean, that was just a flash out of nowhere that took me completely by surprise. There's no way I could take credit for saying that I saw that coming because I figured 35-year-old knuckleballer who's never really done anything in the majors before. There's no way I could have seen that coming. And once again, I don't see anybody on the roster this year that I could see any kind of success like.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. I mean, I think that Josh Tolley might have a better year than some people think, but I wouldn't say that he's really coming out of nowhere to do it. Everyone, if you ask about him, he's good with pitch selection. He uses all the fields to when he's at the plate and stuff like that. And obviously he's the only guy on our team that can actually catch Dickey, I think. So, I see Tolley having a good year, but I'm not, I don't think he's coming from out of nowhere. So,
Right.
yeah. Okay, next question. Both Jason and John pretty much asked a similar question, and they're concerned about Beltran in right field and really want to know, do we have any options for right field if Beltran starts the year on the DL or if isn't ready? I mean, what are your thoughts on right field?
Well, I think what's gonna end up happening is it's probably gonna be some combination of Scott Hairston, and Willie Harris, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I like both those guys as fourth, fifth outfielders for this team. They've both played exceptionally well in the spring. Not that that's an indicator of the season, really.
Right.
But I like those guys a lot as fourth and fifth outfielders, and I'm comfortable with that for some period of time. And I think if Carlos Beltran ends up on the D to start the season, which I would be surprised if he wouldn't. I mean, he's DH'd in one game. That I think that's going to open a spot for Nick Evans, who doesn't have any options. So, and I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, and I know Nick Evans is a fan favorite. It just looks like it's a numbers game right now, and he might get the short end of the stick with that. I mean, we'll see, but it's a shame. He's really never gotten a shot to kind of prove himself at the major league level. But I guess we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Anthony is somewhat concerned about Jason Bay and is wondering about his power numbers. I saw you and Anthony having a conversation on your Facebook fan page. I mean, what are your thoughts on Jason Bay? I mean, I personally don't expect him to hit 40 home runs. I never did when he came to the Mets, but do you think he can be in that 25 home run range?
I do. I think he could be in the 25 home run range. The concern for me is that he's making $16 million this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you pay $16 million for a 25 home run guy? I mean, I don't know.
Do you pay $16 million for a lefty specialist?
You definitely, in this case, you do. But that's my concern is I do think he's going to be better than last year. I mean, he couldn't be worse. He was awful last year and then got hurt for the rest of the year. But, I'm a little concerned that he may end up on this Luis Castillo, Oliver Perez fan distaste for his salary at $16 million and not producing at the clip that you would expect for a $16 million player.
Yeah, and you know what? That's an interesting point because I've always been thinking about, if Perez and Castillo made the team, who would get the loudest boos at the home opener? But if neither one are on the team, I mean, if Jason Bay doesn't get off to a good start, he could be that next guy in line that's getting all the boos at Citi Field.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then lastly, let's catch up a little bit on the Madoff situation. I honestly have not paid too much attention to the recent stories, so and I know that you have. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the trustee for the Madoff lawsuit amended their claims, and I guess now the lawsuit is slightly over $1 billion with a B, billion.
Ouch.
And they did amend it and had some kind of incriminating evidence that they included in this amended complaint against them, including that the Madoff gave an interest-free loan for $54 million to the Wilpons 7 years ago and kind of made it appear as though it was an investment by Madoff's wife to them. Uh-huh. But then the Wilpons paid it back one day later because they decided they didn't need the money. And it just goes to show just how close these two were. I mean, they were really Madoff and the Wilpons they were two peas in a pod, according to this lawsuit. So it's very disconcerting to see how close they were with Madoff during this whole thing. And the other piece that I read that's a bit of a concern, I guess, is that these minority owners that have expressed interest in the team, mm-hmm. There's some rumblings that they're all asking for clauses to be included in their purchase that say that if the Wilpons become insolvent, basically, that they have the opportunity to purchase, have first right of refusal on purchase of the team, basically. So that could end up being a holdup on a potential sale for a minority stake of the team.
Well, I mean, I think that's smart. I mean, if I were investing in this team, I definitely want some clause in there or something like that protects me. I mean, obviously, if these guys want to, get their foot in the door here, if you will, with buying a piece of the Mets, obviously their long-term goals is to eventually, own the majority stake in a potential team. And so, I think that's kind of smart, also, too. You got to believe that some of these guys that are willing to invest in this team probably don't trust the Wilpons much here. So they're going to want all types of clauses and stuff like that. So, I guess that's smart on their end. So
right. And one other piece I forgot to mention is that that the trustee also included in the complaint that the Wilpons, just before this whole thing came down on top of Madoff, that they had restructured some of their debt to make their debt on the Madoff money subsidiary to other debts that they have, so that are subordinate to other debts that they have. So it would make it more difficult for the trustee to try to recover that money from them.
Okay, all right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I like we've talked before, I think this is going to be an ongoing saga probably throughout the summer. So we'll probably find out more and more information as the weeks and months go on. So
I'm sure we will.
yeah,
And it's getting uglier by the day.
Yep. Well, hey, Dave, thanks for joining me for a few minutes here for our weekly chat. And again, for those of you out there watching, Dave and I will be doing these weekly chats throughout the season, keeping you guys up to date on what's going on with the Mets. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.